Whoa, calm down. Don't freak out. And I'm sorry about the clickbait title. I promise you this will be a worthwhile video. I just need you guys to sit this one through and just come to it with some open ears and hearts. Hi, welcome to Otaku Talk. I'm your host, OD, and today we'll be talking about is Oda and Hack. Now, I'm gonna be real with you guys. One Piece is my favorite shonen manga of all time. I think it is one of the greatest literary fictional works of, I guess, literature. I said literary and literature. One of the greatest works of literature in like the world. I honestly, ever since I discovered anime and One Piece and manga, it has been a staple in my life. I have constantly read it from binging to week. One Piece has been an intricate part of my life. So I really want to let you guys know when we start this video, I come into this from a stance as a super fan and a firm advocate and believer in Oda and the series as a whole. So I want you guys to really take this video in good faith. All right, now that that disclaimer is out the way, let's get into why you guys are here. We as a fan base have a tendency to believe Oda is faultless. And maybe that's not the case for you, but for me personally, I've, regurgitated certain words like Oda's the GOAT, Goda, I call him Oda Sensei, I put him on a pedestal, I say Oda can do no wrong. I truly and genuinely believe 100% in Oda as a mangaka and in everything he does. If you were to, I've gotten into many an argument with people that have always put, that have said things like Naruto is better than One Piece, or put other trash anime or manga, not to say that Naruto is trash, but have put other series above One Piece. And I've always been like, you guys simply don't understand. Because for me, One Piece has always been one of those things that seems gaggy, that seems jokey, that seems not so serious, but the underlying stories and themes that Oda tells are incredible to say the least. And I've always felt that despite its massive acclaim and the fact that it's probably the top grossing manga of all time, it also is somehow underrated, or at least to me it feels that way. And come on, don't lie, we as a community have found any and all reasons to justify certain things that happen in One Piece, right? To this day, there are some things in One Piece that have gotten on my nerves that I still need clarification on, but I trust in Oda enough that it will be revealed in time, right? And there's a popular booktuber named Murphy Napier. I've recently started checking her out, and she said something in one of her reviews of, earlier on when she started One Piece that I'm going to use in this video, and that's, I'm okay with it, but I have some questions. And so without much further ado, let's get into this. So let's discuss a lot of the questions this chapter and reveal brought up, as well as the implications and ramifications of the chapter, Luffy's new devil fruit, and its awakening. First off, let's talk about Shanks, and if you knew about the importance and the significance of the Gamu Gamu no Mi. By the way, for this video, I'm going to say Gamu Gamu no Mi mainly because it's what I know, and Hito Hito no Mi doesn't roll off the tongue as well, so I'm going to say Gamu Gamu no Mi, right? So to answer that question, I'm just going to say no, but I think he had an idea that it was going to be relatively important, and I think somewhere down the road he did discover the true nature of the fruit. I reread chapter 1, and after rereading it, it really does seem like he had no real kind of knowledge about how important the fruit was. However, there are some things that he did that did kind of perturb me. Other than the fact that, he left it out presumably on a counter, and I was trying to actually see the exact moment Luffy ate the fruit, and it kind of just seemed like Luffy was eating a bunch of food, and then in one panel he just had the Gamu Gamu no Mi and was eating that. It was very innocuous, like, right? It just happened out of the blue. But one thing that really intrigued me was the fact that right after Luffy ate it and the events that happened with, the mountain bandits and whatnot, Shanks decides to leave the island, never returns. he makes some excuse that, you know, they've been there too long and yada yada, but I truly think, knowing what we know now, that he knew that, hey, maybe the Marines, the world government, might be looking for this fruit again. I might be putting Luffy in danger, something along those lines, and he decided to leave. I do think that around the point where he did realize the importance of the fruit is when he had that meeting with the Gorosei. And the meeting I'm talking about in particular is when he was like, there's a specific pirate I have to talk about. And for the longest time, you know, we don't really know who that pirate is. And, you know, once again, as One Piece fans, this is what we do. We speculate, we headcanon, we figure it out. And as of right now, I'm starting to go back to leaning towards Luffy. The main two suspects were Luffy and Blackbeard. And I'm leaning towards Luffy. And I'm thinking possibly that there was a situation along the lines where Shanks told the Gorosei, and this is going to answer the second part of the question, why didn't the Gorosei, you know, put forth more effort towards capturing Luffy? And I think part of that reason might simply be the fact that Shanks said, hey, you kill Luffy, that'll be tantamount to declaring war against me and the red hair pirates, and we will come down on your ass. And they decided, hey, we're not trying to have a Yonko gunning for us. We're going to leave him alone for now. Now, some other reasons that I think the Gorosei decided to, you know, leave Luffy alone is, one, they didn't. I think that, you know, certain people high up had orders to, you know, if they had the chance to take out Luffy. But for the most part, the Gorosei kind of wanted to keep this under tight wraps, right? The Gorosei know way more than your average Marine, right? I think that a lot of, you know, the information that the Gorosei have is privileged. I don't even think Akainu knows all the things that the Gorosei know. So I think one of the issues was they weren't disseminating information properly to the rest of the organization to, you know, get the threat that is, you know, Luffy. On top of that, I think there are moments where they tried, and Luffy just time and time again has just been able to circumvent, you know, fate, survive things that he shouldn't, and just meet, you know, fortunate ends. There was the, you know, moment he met Aokiji. I believe he ran into Kizaru. There was the whole surviving Marine Fort. So there's that. And then the last thing I would like to say is, I think it was just a matter of hubris, to be honest. No one in over 800 years had ever awakened this fruit. And I think they just kind of said, you know what? The fruit itself isn't that dangerous. As we've seen, as we saw, when Luffy first initially uses the fruit, it's relatively weak. And, you know, part of that could be due to training. Part of that could be due to the age of Luffy, because we did get confirmation that the older you are with the fruit, it can have an effect on the fruit. Now, I'm not sure that's just Zoan's, but Momo was a perfect example of that, how his dragon was small and feeble when he was younger, but then when Shinobu aged him up, it became massive, comparable to the size of Kaido. So yeah, I find that to be extraordinarily interesting and a potential reason. So I'm not going to get too hung up on that, but I really think that maybe those are some of the reasons that the Gorosei weren't taking, you know, capturing Luffy so easily. I think they were just, you know, full of themselves and thought, hey, this hasn't been awoken. He's probably not going to do it. We'll get him down the road. Yeah, he's annoying, but, you know, he hasn't done that much. So, done that much yet. Also, on top of that, you have the fact that they did try last time again on Wano. And I think that they thought it would be a loophole if it was during the Kaido fight. That way, if Luffy did end up dying, it could easily be blamed on Kaido and him fighting with him. So, yeah, I will leave that there for now. But let's get really into the meat of this video, right? So let's discuss one of my many qualms with the potential implications and ramifications of Luffy's new fruit and lore. The main thing is, it's a walking plot device. Now, going in this Joyboy route in the story, the ability can be whatever he needs it to be. Now, when the chapter first came out in the fan translations, we were told it was limited to your imagination. Now, the official translation helped temper that because it said he can fight how he fancies. However, I just think that's just some playful wordplay, and they're just trying to essentially establish that he can do anything he wants within the bounds of, I want to say, his power, but what exactly is his power? I'm sure Oda won't do this, but the issue with, you know, Luffy having an ability this OP is the fact that he can do anything he wants when he wants, and, you know, at any point in the story he can be as weak or strong as he needs to be, or as the plot demands, and that's kind of scary. However, I don't believe Oda is going to go this route. I don't think it's going to be Aspel after Aspel after Aspel. I'm just saying that the potential for it is honestly quite readily there. The fruit seems to have no limits in terms of what it can do, and could be way worse than that.
Creativity here is in fact the death of limitation, which is actually the death of creativity, is what that is. All right, limits aren't allowed in 2022. Look, and again, I want to clarify this again on this point. Look, I like the stuff that's happening here. I like Luffy doing this kind of freedom stuff with his awakening. I do. There's a part of me that is way into it and finds it really fun and cool, and it does make sense as the capstone of, like, Luffy's abilities. We all thought that Luffy could do this awakening stuff, and, like, stretch reality around him, which is basically what he's doing. Right? What I'm saying is there are things I like about it for sure. But is it worth throwing away, like, Luffy's... I don't even know. I mean, like, is it worth just contravening the way Luffy's powers have worked up to this point so completely? I don't think it is.
All right, so next up, let's talk about Gear 5th itself. Personally, I am a fan of Gear 5th. I love Gear 5th. I think it is absolutely dope. Goofy Luffy tune, I'm absolutely here for it, right? It's honestly a combination of every theory I ever had and saw on what Gear 5 was. The ability for Luffy to freely control his body, you know, the snapback limitation is gone, right? He's able to, through touch, as far as we know right now, you know, still only one chapter out, through touch, able to affect and, you know, attribute his power to other things, as we saw with both the ground when he was able to send back Kaido's Boro Blast, and I have a theory that he's able to use it on humans as well. I truly think that, you know, Kaido's eyes bulging out wasn't just a gag, but potentially Oda showing us that no, like, this can affect people, this can cartoonify enemies as well. But despite liking and loving Gear 5th, I feel like it didn't need the extra trimmings. I feel like it didn't need to be the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. I felt like it could have just been a natural progression of Luffy's feet. Sorry, not feet, fruit. I feel like it could have been a natural progression of Luffy's fruit. All this time we've had numerous theories about it being, you know, liquid rubber, resin, oil, this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, that was just for us to get what we got in Gear 5th, where it was complete freedom of his abilities and, you know, utilization of what he can do. And I think I still think we could have gotten all of that with the rubber fruit. And I think that there's a lot of issues with it being a more so important fruit. I really like the fact that this Luffy's abilities have really brought us back to pre-time skip Luffy. Don't get me wrong, I've personally always been a fan of Haki. I understand some people say One Piece fell off at that Haki point, or it became more like, you know, Dragon Ball Z, but Haki was always a necessary power. It always was. From the moment Logias were introduced and how they were intangible and stuff like that, I knew some other power system had to be at play in order for us to interact with Logias. I know a lot of people think it's lazy writing and Oda should have found ways for, you know, Luffy to be able to hit Logias, but I think that would have overcomplicated the story. I think that would have made for some really convoluted fights and situations and, you know, solutions to, you know, fights. And I do think that Haki is a legitimate power system And despite the fact that it's rather vague right now, but we are learning more about it, I think it is fine. So don't get me wrong there, but that doesn't change the fact that I really do like the fact that Luffy's new power set returns him back to the pre-time skip Luffy we love, where he had to outthink, be out creative, and be really ingenious with his rubber abilities as a whole. All the things we used to see and stuff like that, all the, you know, Gamu Gamu UFO, Gamu Gamu stamps, and then all the, like, you know, Mizu Luffy and this version of Luffy and that version of Luffy, and then like Luffy, you know, holding something with his hands and then dropping on them and doing like having special Gamu Gamu no moves like Gamu Gamu Mallet. I really love that it's bringing that era, that creativity of One Piece and Luffy back to the forefront, and that honestly you cannot deny, you cannot argue with, you cannot complain about. It's just good to see. But making it the Hito Hito no Mi somehow cheapens the character, and this achievement especially seeing as to how immediately after awakening he proceeds to wash the ever-living mess out of Kaido. Albeit, to be fair, it can be easily argued that Kaido was in his weakest form, as well as completely caught by surprise at the time, because the last time he checked, Luffy was dead and he had no clue what was going on, right? Also, I don't think this takes away from any of Luffy's past accomplishments. As I said earlier, we saw initially how weak this fruit was, and he was only a contender in the East Blue. Once he started to get to stronger seas, he started to struggle extremely. So obviously, you know, this fruit didn't make, you know, his adventure a cakewalk from him, and I'll vehemently argue with anyone else that says otherwise. The fruit isn't broken until it's awakened, and with the other imposing forces in the world, it was unlikely to happen because as high as its ceiling is, its floor was incredibly low. That being said, I really hate the wording of peak in the manga. Maybe it simply means that this is his ultimate form, but he can still grow from here in other ways. But at the start of this arc, he felt way too weak to fight Kaido. Then at some point in the arc, he felt like he was just able to stand on the same ground as him. Not quite able to beat him, but hey, he can hang, he can contend with the Yonko, which in my opinion was mad impressive, especially at where we are in the story, right? But literally after awakening, he has been completely dominating. I do see Kaido going hybrid potentially and showing us more tricks, but I don't see how it's possible for him to win anymore. And if Luffy is this strong now, it makes me apprehensive about the stakes for the next arc. And we still have Shanks, Blackbeard, Admirals, and possibly M to contend with. I want to still feel like Luffy can lose and still has room for growth. I was content when I thought this arc would be about Ryu. But now that feels useless. I only served as a vehicle to develop fighting with Conquerors. We got Ryu, Conquerors, and Awakening all incredibly fast, and to be fair, this could just simply be the point where, like Roger, Luffy is just the strongest there is, and now it's time for him to showcase that. Like beating Kaido might make him the champ, and everything from here is maintaining that title. Also, one thing, quick segue, what the hell ever happened to Tank Man? We saw it once, then never again. And if it was a one-time off-the-cuff move, why have a stuffed version anyway? I digress. The most One Piece just has so many things going on, it's hard not to get caught up in the minutia of insequential things. But like, that is one thing that has been bothering me to this day if we'll ever see it again. Moving on, still talking about Gear 5th. Where is he pulling the energy from Gear 5th / his awakening from? We've seen that awakenings can be extremely taxing on the user, and Luffy said previously to this would be his last Gear 4th. So he had to be low on energy / hockey, right? Maybe simply getting a second win / level up. I like to think of it as like, there's a game I play, League of Legends, right? And whenever you level up, you get a little bit of your health and your mana back. Not a lot, but you know, enough to maybe keep you in the fight or help you win the fight, right? And so I'm thinking maybe it's along those terms where awakening isn't hockey based and he was running out of hockey, and maybe during this fight he's just purely going to be going off of the power of the fruit itself. Once maybe he's getting a second win, like I said, and once he leveled up, you know, he got a little bit of, you know, mana and health back. Or he simply just believes he and has the will to keep going and fighting, therefore he can. And it's just, once again, a feat attributed to his new devil fruit. Who knows though? Another issue I'm having is the monikers. Joyboy versus Nika versus SunGod. Are they synonymous or are they just loosely connected? Is Nika a god, or is it a situation where he was simply exalted as one, and therefore became one like the likes of Gonfa, Enel, the Lunarians, and the Celestials? Were there other sun gods? Is Joyboy a title, or is it just another epithet that around the world the same gods have different names, or akin to the Journey of the West where he starts off normal and ascends to godhood? Side note, this almost feels like it was a workaround to making him Sun Wukong, which was a theory heavy in the community. When we were initially thinking about devil fruits it could potentially be, we were thinking of only of non-in-lore gods, as this is, correct me if I'm wrong, the only fruit to not be a person, animal, concept outside of the world of One Piece. Although, to be fair, there is a record of a Haitian god, Joyboy, that has similar themes to One Piece's Joyboy, but once again, there's the liberty taken with making him rubber as a physical expression or manifestation, if you will, of his freedom. See what I did there? Liberty and freedom? Anyway, there also is most likely intentional contradiction of Luffy being an enemy of the gods and a D-Clan member, as well as being essentially a receptacle of the powers of the Sun God. Best Guy Ever said it best, and the biggest issue I have with the fruit being what it is it only truly serves to make literal what was once allegorical. And personally, I enjoyed the allegorical nature of the story and stories in general better.
There once was a man named Gold Roger. Before they hung him from the gallows, these were his final words. My fortune is yours for the taking, but first, you have to eat the legendary Hito Hito no Mi model Nika fruit that the government has mislabeled as the Gomu Gomu no Mi, because it is the legendary fruit of destiny. That is the way that you access the final island. I tried to do it, but I'm not the chosen one of destiny, because I have the wrong devil fruit. So when Whitebeard said, you Blackbeard, you're not the man that Roger was waiting for. Because you didn't eat this one specific devil fruit called the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. Which I just made up, by the way. Oda pulled it out of his ass just 2 minutes ago in the future. That's why you're not the chosen one. Not because of your personality or your goals or anything. Look, I don't even think Oda's trying to do that. That's just the narrative consequence of how he's writing this.
I mean, there's also the chance that Joyboy was originally a Lunarian, and that would both explain the elasticity of his body, as King also showed rubber-like abilities, although at the time we attributed to his fruit. Also, there's fire, which King had, and now we know Luffy has as well. Maybe Red Hawk and Rock are just further extensions of Nika's abilities as a Lunarian, similar to electricity with minks and water with mermen. However, doing things this way opens up a can of worms. Was Roger not the one only cause he didn't have this specific fruit? What about Chopper's Hito Hito no Mi? Does it secretly have a model? Almost every zone in the series, with an exception of a handful, have models, and one can assume it's possible these didn't have models because the models simply were unknown by the wielder or the world government. Why does Chopper's human point look nothing like a human, and still a hybrid of some sort? What even is his monster point? What exactly constitutes a human in the One Piece world? We've seen Skypeans, Lunarians, Minks, and Merfolks. Also, to go back on why doesn't Chopper's full transformation look human, it kind of seems silly in a world where humans like Masira and Shoujo exist. What does it even mean to look human? You know what I mean? Part of me wants to ask, why doesn't Chopper have some obscure manifestation of being human as a default? But the easiest answer for that is, it's not mythical. Also, one could argue the versatility and diversity of his forms is the characteristic of humans, or simply the fact that he can talk in all of his forms is the acquired ability. Outside of the Hito Hito no Mi, the only other reference we have outside of Onyudo, which doesn't count because an animal ate it, the only other precedent we have is Sengoku's model Daibutsu, and we've never seen a what I assume to be hybrid form of it, so we can either speculate the Buddha form is his full transformation or awakening. And if that's the case, are the shockwaves he produces an effect of his ability or simply his awakening? Honestly, I'm at a point where I feel like most elite characters are awakened, and the OP abilities they use, for example, Kaido's Borrow Breath, electricity, air, flame clouds, are derived from their awakenings. Big Mom being able to use her own life force to heal and sustain herself, and some of the other abilities she's shown to to make herself stronger, as well as, I think some variation in how she absorbs homies and puts homies in people might be from her awakening. And then you have Marco's Flames of Regeneration intangibility. Maybe that doesn't come from him having the Phoenix Fruit. Maybe that came from him awakening the Phoenix Fruit. Also, for the One Piece has always been random and nonsensical, people, I totally agree. But there has to be some level or semblance of stability. Like, I totally get it. Luffy can regrow teeth with milk. He can heal from meals. Dinosaurs can do insane abilities, because who says they couldn't? I'm not saying some of these things won't be fleshed out in the future, but it's healthy for us to question it. I love that One Piece is rooted in absurdism. But once again, even then, it needs to be held together in some way. Have you ever met that asshole that's mean or rude, and when you call them out on it, they gaslight you? They insisting that something was a joke only because of the consequences. It feels like that in One Piece, where, okay, this is a joke or gag until it's not. It's actually an intricate part of the plot, and in small doses, that can be cute. But there's a danger. It can lead to absolute apathy and disrespect to the story, because we don't know what to take at face value and what could randomly have significance. And typically, I've never had an issue with this in One Piece, because I've always gone, well, Oda will explain it. But now we are running into issues, especially with the lack of reliable narrators. Because One Piece is a series where everyone knows only as much as they know, from whatever source they know it from. Like when Lucci explains Gear 2nd. Also, can we even take the Gorosei's word after all? They themselves are puppets for Im, and probably have redacted information as well. Despite the absurdity, I love applying a base level of logic to people's powers and abilities in the series. That's why it was so satisfying to see Kid finally not only use his awakening, but to see it was a railgun, something the community has been hoping for, and was a natural, logical progression and utilization of his abilities. It helps keeps the series grounded. I like that Gear 2nd was a result of Luffy turning his heart into a mega pump and essentially doping his body. Gear 3 was cool despite air not having much mass and bones not being actually connected to one another. Like, they're connected to one another, but by like ligaments and, tendons, not by like one big bone. So if you blew into one bone, it shouldn't automatically fill another bone. But like, to a certain degree, I loved the logic, right? I could still buy into the concept. Gear 4th was cool because he used air and hockey to compress his muscles. These were things I could really get behind. And there was even in-lore explanations for how things like Snake Man, for example, could have worked. I always liked the one fan canon that Luffy was using a derivation of Geppo. And a lot of times you could actually see little clouds where the attacks were changing angles when he was using Snake Man. And I thought it was a perfect explanation. Even Gear 5th could have worked with existing in-lore logic and mechanisms, such as Samai Kikan, that could easily explain things like Luffy healing his teeth with milk, recovering stamina and health from food, and being able to freely control his body in elasticity. Honestly, I thought that was going to be the culmination of all this. I thought Samai Kikan was going to make a massive comeback, and honestly, I'm kind of disappointed it didn't. And I really think it could have made all the sense in the world about how, his awakening worked in conjunction with it, right? But alas, that was not the case. Listen, I used to love surprise twists because it always used to be like, oh my god, how did I not see that coming? Because with clues from the past, it makes sense. But now it's like, what? And now I'm concerned twists will be done simply for twist purposes and will only super loosely tie into plot or be accepted because they had vague foreshadowing. Recently, I heard someone talking ill about how for the longest time theorists said Ace couldn't be Roger's son because of timing. Then we find out that he was Roger's son, and the only reason the timing didn't match up was because Forecastle Rouge delayed her pregnancy through sheer will for 20 months. This was one of my favorite feats and just moments in the story of One Piece, and it was adulterated because I still like to think that that was a story point, but the fact it could be a convenient ruse is now something I have to face. Recently, I heard an idea I kind of liked where Oda treats One Piece like a D&D campaign where he has many elements of the campaign fleshed out, but often will allow the characters' motivations and situations to navigate the story, and more I am seeing things like that. And for the longest time, I thought Oda had every single thing planned out, despite evidence of things like supernova being created on the fly. But I really am starting to see evidence of Oda leaving things open-ended so that he does have the luxury of going back and changing them. There's also a lot of twists recently that go against everything we've come to know, but Oda changes what we know. Like, for example, we first have hearsay from Jabra about eating multiple devil fruits. We're told you can't eat 2 devil fruits because of the devils inside fighting. Then we learn about Teach and flip out because it changes everything that we were told initially, right? Now, can you imagine if the solution was something as simple as anyone can do it, just no one tried to, or it's government propaganda and no one was crazy enough to try it or experiment? That would greatly annoy me, and I would consider it poor writing, even if the purpose was to highlight the world government's control and influence. We haven't even seen people attempt it, excluding Blackbeard. Also, if the devil fruits have a will of their own, could it simply mean that they can select where they are reincarnated, instead of it being the closest fruit, which is what we have assumed all this time? Or maybe they can induce feelings of hunger in those they wish to consume them, like Luffy and Ace, etc. Because there are many times in the story where a lot of the people that have eaten devil fruits, it was purely happenstance. They were hungry and the devil fruit was near them and they devoured it. So maybe they're able to, elicit feelings of hunger in those they wish to devour them. My theory, personally, I feel like the Gorosei are simply ill-informed. I think that it's not just Zoan fruits, but all devil fruits have a will of their own. It's the only thing that makes sense. And also, we've been shown time and time again in the series that everything has a will or a voice. And I feel as though if you eat 2 devil fruits that have opposing wills or ideals, they're going to reject each other, and that's what causes people to die. And I feel like the only way to have multiple devil fruits is for them to have wills or ambitions that co-align, or for one will to be so domineering it curtails, oppresses, and subjugates the will of the other. Honestly, maybe that's why Blackbeard is able to absorb and utilize multiple fruits. Maybe he has a devil fruit that's will is so vast, so grand, that it just subjugates that of any other. Speaking of Blackbeard, I'm sure people have made this joke already, but this does open the door for there to be some obscure twist that he also ate a Zoan as well. And it could be the Hito Nomi model Zebek, or the Yami Yami was secretly that all along, and that's why it doesn't function as a Logia. Also, something I noticed is similar to how Luffy had to touch Kaido or the ground in order to spread his power, Teach can also render you powerless through touch. Now, once again, I don't truly know if Luffy has to touch things to spread his power, or the fruit ability, but it's one of those things I mentioned before where, is it a gag or is it plot relevant? It's just another issue I have where we don't know. But yeah, this story has been incredible. Maybe secretly this is just one giant Gurren Lagann-esque metaphor where Oda is trying to say there are no limitations to anything, and just like the world government, society has been brainwashed into accepting false truths. At the end of the day, however, this last chapter forces us to recontextualize everything, which once again isn't necessarily a bad thing, but as readers we have to ask ourselves, do these choices help or hurt the story in an impactful way? Is everything Oda does expert planning or ingenious finesse? Has One Piece reached its peak, or is there still so much more to come? Is this hope or cope? Personally, when it comes to the brilliance that is One Piece, I've learned by now to always bet on Oda, but only time will tell. Anyway, thank you all for checking out this video. I greatly appreciate it. I want to reiterate, this in no way, shape, or form was meant to demean Oda or say he is a terrible writer. Once again, I love Oda. Personally, I think the answer to is Oda a hack? Absolutely not. However, I do think we are at a point in the story where we need to start asking some questions. We need to start demanding some more answers. And like I said, maybe next chapter, maybe next 2 chapters, Oda reveals some more backstory, some more lore that makes me shut my mouth up. But I don't think that it does Oda or the series or the fandom any justice to simply, you know, just accept everything that we are given at face value. Anyway, this has been Otaku Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Please like, share, and subscribe. Peace.